Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interviewing Wednesdays. We're doing our special guest interview speaker series. This will be our last session before the end of the year. It's December 16th. We're very, very glad that you are with us today. For those people on Zoom, if you have questions throughout the presentation, we ask that you just go to the chat box, enter your questions in there, and as the speaker takes a break, we will get your questions answered for you. And for those people watching on Facebook, just please enter your comments, your question into the comment field. I am monitoring that feed. For those on Zoom, if you have a PC or Mac, we ask that you use the speaker view, which is what's in the lower left-hand corner. And where that red arrow is, you can grab those white lines and you can slide it back and forth to adjust the size of the speaker and the PowerPoint presentation to make it whatever is comfortable for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career FW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you happen to post a comment in the chat box or you have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. In 2008, I started careerdfw.org to help people who are unemployed in the DFW area try to find everything in one place. In 2012, I started careerusa.org to help people outside the DFW area. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know, available on Amazon, or you can drive by the house and get it from me. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007. At the end of this presentation, I will tell you about our upcoming programming this Friday. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. Well, before we get to our speaker, I'd like to talk a little bit about the practice interview team. So Mark, please tell us about it. What, Mark, you're muted.
Muted.
There you go.
How can I be muted?
Got a weird cough, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's poltergeist. Well, the pit crew is very busy, as I expected, and I was a little apprehensive, I have to say, because this has been such an unusual year. But December and November both are very busy months for interviewing, and that's the way it's turned out to be. By the end of the week, if it all works out, the pit crew will have done 7 practice interviews this week, and 2 are scheduled for next week. And I could probably do another 1 or 2 maybe next week if you need. But we will also be working over the holiday. So the way the pit crew works is I have a bunch of volunteers, and when you send in your information, your interview information, which would be a resume and a job description, then I post that up to them and they choose who they want to help. And so if they're available, and some of them will be, we will be able to give you a practice interview over the holiday season. And I already know of one candidate who has an interview on January 4th. And so they're going to practice the New Year's week. We haven't set it up for a specific time, but that's coming up. So the pit crew is available virtually on Zoom. And we're starting to do more people out of town as well. So that's what the pit crew's up to. And the way you get involved is, well, just send me an email. I'll tell you what, just send me an email at dallaspitcrew@gmail.com if you want more information about how to get involved. And I'll send you a description about how to do that. I encourage you to link in with me also. I think there's my LinkedIn profile. And all you have to do is put a brief note that I met on the Wednesday afternoon interview webinar session, and I'll add you to my network. And of course, that'll help you find people inside your target companies. Most of my contacts are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and a broad range of people, because I've been doing the pit crew for about 8 years. So a lot of people have linked in with me, accountants, logistics people, engineering people, all kinds of stuff are in my network. And so I think it'll be a great benefit to you as well. And then finally, I coach a little bit, and I coach just on one topic. One question that you will likely get asked is, why did you leave your last position? And for some people, that's pretty a straightforward thing. They were laid off, and a bunch of other people were laid off. The company had to restructure. COVID knocked them out. Others, it's not so easy to explain, and you may struggle with that. So don't struggle. Give me a call, and we'll come up with a plan on how to approach your specific situation, have a confidential discussion about how to answer that question, and then any follow-up questions that may be generated by your situation. So we'll spend an hour, maybe a little bit more, and get you all squared away so you do well answering that question. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Mark. And I put in the chat box for everybody on Zoom, pit crew information. So if you want to download that PDF, you can download that, and that'll have the information you can keep with you until you're ready to send an interview. Walt Glass, the Interview Success Workshop.
Good afternoon, everyone. Walt Glass here. Glad to have you with us. Great session here with Tony today. Anticipate some great information. So I also help people gain skills and confidence in successful job interviews, and I do that with the free Interview Success Workshop. The workshop is designed starting off with fundamentals of basically two things. The first thing is how to differentiate yourself from other candidates. I'm sure Tony can tell you that he's heard the same answer for some things over and over and over again from candidates. And so how can we be different, be genuine, and be authentic, and show up at the top of the list? The other thing is just really, what is it that we're selling? And so there's three legs to that stool. It's I am, I do, and I help. So in an interview, how can we sell who we are? What is our personality? What are our characteristics? Does the culture fit? What I do, which is our experience, background, and hard skills, and then what I can do to help you, which is the value of hiring me. So if I wanted to answer the question, why should I hire you? I would be able to do that with showing you who I am, what I do, and how I can help you. It is free. You need to register to sign up. My LinkedIn page in the About section gives the details about that. Send me an email, and I'll be glad to send you some dates that are available. Now, right now, the next date's going to be January the 5th. So I don't have anybody signed up yet. A lot of people don't want to sign up that far in advance. And then it comes January 5th, and I don't have anybody. And then the next week is like overcrowded. So if you want to jump in, go ahead and do that now. Now's the time to do it. It's a fun time. It's not a mock interview. It's a learning interview, and I call it Learning Without Squirming.
Well, thank you very, very much. All right. Well, our speaker today is Tony Beshara. This is the last speaker we're going to have for this year. During the month of November, December, we had several different guest speakers come in. Tony is going to wrap us up for the year, talking about the 10 biggest mistakes that people make while interviewing. Tony is the president and founder of Babich Associates. Babich Associates is a recruiting firm. They actually got me my last job. I actually got a phone call on a Monday, and by that Thursday, I was employed to start the following Monday. So I appreciate Tony and the people there who help out. So, you can check out his website, Babich Associates. If you see a job you're interested in, contact those people and let them know that you're interested. So Tony, thank you for being with us, and it's all yours.
It's a pleasure. And we're only as good as the candidates we represent. So in this case, we're pretty good. Can you see the screen?
You need to go ahead and share now.
Okay.
So,
All right. I need to back it up. Hold on 1 minute. It's jumping around because of my talking. 1 second. There we go. All right. Okay. Well, welcome and thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It's very kind of you. I can hear you this time, which is better than what happened last time, right?
Yeah.
So we're in good shape. We'll get right to the point. I've been doing this since 1973, and I've placed more than 11,000 people. I've interviewed probably more than 110,000 people in that period of time, about 3 a day since 1973, and written 4 or 5 books on 5 books on how to find a job. And really, when it comes down to it, interviewing is the most important thing you can do. You can't control many things in the getting a job. You can't control getting a job as much as you can control interviewing, getting interviews, and performing well on interviews. So today we're going to go over the top 10 mistakes that people make in the interviewing process. And the first mistake is that they forget that this is a selling situation. They go into an interview with the idea of what the prospective employer might be able to do for them rather than what they can do for the prospective employer. It is a selling situation. You've got absolutely nothing until you have a job offer. So the first mistake that people make is they just don't realize they have to sell themselves. They think they're buyers. I'm trying to get to the second one. Second mistake is they think that interviewing, whoops, we got to go back to that. Oh, shoot. They think that interviewing is a two-way street. It stopped sharing. Hold on. Hold on one second. Can you see the screen now? Can you all see the screen now?
Good.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes,
Doggone
the
it.
first one,
Yeah.
first slide.
All right. Second mistake is they think interviewing is a two-way street. That
It's gone again.
Jeff and I practiced this yesterday. I got to tell you, we really did. The truth is we really, really did. Honestly, we did. Didn't we, Jeff?
We did. I tell you what, Tony, you want me to run it from here?
Yeah.
Okay,
You,
let me.
you want it, why don't you run it from there and then my speaking won't mess it up.
Right. Do you want to just stop sharing for a second and then I'll
Yeah.
share my screen?
Uh,
Oh, here, I can do it. I can do it. I'm good.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's see here. Make sure I get the right screen up. All right. So
Okay.
let's 1, 2. Here we go. Slide number
All
2.
right. Okay. Interviewing is not a two-way street until metaphorically you get to the altar. Once you get to the altar and you start to get married, then it becomes a two-way street. Until then, it's a one-way street. It's you and 50 other candidates. And you've got to put yourself in front of those 50 other candidates to make yourself valid for that employer. And then it can become a two-way street, but not until then. Don't even imagine that. It's a one-way street. You and 50 others people trying to get to the employer so that the employer is willing to try to hire you. Then it can be a give and take.
Just let me know when you want me to advance.
Go ahead to 3.
Okay.
People have a tendency to focus on what they want in a job. One of the first questions I ask candidates is, what are you looking for? And oftentimes candidates come up with all kinds of things of what they are looking for in a job, and they focus on what they want rather than what they can do for a prospective employer. So when I come down to the question of what can you do for a prospective employer, they say things like, well, I'm just a good worker. All I am is a good worker. They don't have to worry about me. I'm a good worker. I want to know what they're going to do for me. Now, there are certain times when we're not in a recession, which we are, where you might be able to get away with that, but not now. You can't focus on what you want in a job. You got to focus on what the employer wants in a job. It's like putting an objective on a resume. An employer doesn't care what your objective is. He cares what his objective is. Okay, we can go to 4. The fourth mistake is they don't know what they're really selling to an employer. Most candidates, even though they need to know that they are selling themselves, they don't know what they should be selling. Track record, track record, track record. Here is what I can do for you because here is what I've done for other people. And you better be able to make it statistical. The more numbers that you have wrapped up in the thing, the more you can show how you've been successful. A brag book, things that concrete ways that I have been successful. Ross Perot used to ask people where, if you're old enough to remember, where they've been successful since they were 14 years old. And if you can't go in and say, I've been successful here and there, and here's what I did, and here's how I did it, and here's how I qualified, here is a quantitative assessment of my successes, then you're not going in the right direction. That's what you've got to be selling. You can't just say, I'm a good employee. Now to the 5th one. People can't articulate the bridge for the employer of their specific abilities. Most candidates know they're good, even if they're aware of specific features, advantages, and benefits. They can articulate them specifically, but you have to be able to bridge for an employer. I've been successful at these places, therefore I will be successful for you, and making that bridge from where you've been in the past to what that employer might be specifically looking for. The further away you get from what the employer is looking for as far as experience goes, the more you have to be able to bridge that gap and actually do the thinking for the employer. Because employers are running a risk when they hire somebody, and they want to take the least risk they can. That's why so many employers look for experience in what they do. I'm willing to bet you that 60% of the candidates that I work with can do 60% of the job opportunities I've got, but they're not going to get the chance because they can't prove that they, as much as other people can, what they can do for the employer as to what they've done for other employers. So you have to do their thinking for them. If they want people with a particular skill, you have to show where that skill might have shown up in other jobs and bridge that for them. And you have to do their thinking for them because they won't think. They're sitting there thinking, why shouldn't I hire this person? And you're thinking of why you should be hired, and you have to do their thinking for them. Number 6, poor communication skills. People just don't interview well. Now, most people are not natural salespeople. I get that. And this was where it takes a tremendous amount of practice. I had a guy today, just this morning, on paper, absolutely perfect. He got into the personal face-to-face interview. He mumbled. He didn't look people in the eye. He didn't speak real clearly. It was just, now, I admit the hiring authority is a pretty gregarious, outgoing, massive guy. He's big and he is intimidating. But the candidate just had real poor communication skills. He couldn't articulate why he was good. This takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice. You guys do some of this, and it takes practice, practice, practice. You've got to be able to articulate features, advantages, and benefits that anybody could understand, a high school senior for that matter. You've got to look people in the eye. You've got to be articulate about it, and it takes a lot of practice. It does not come naturally for most people. Number 7, Oh, this has gotten worse over the years. Poor dress and poor body language, poor dress. I always recommend, I don't care if you're going to the most avant-garde advertising agency in Dallas, Texas, dark suit, white shirt, blue shirt, tie for men, blouse, formal dress for women. Always go dressed formally. Dress like you're going to go borrow $1 million from these people. I don't care how much they tell you it's casual around here. Come casually on an initial interview. You don't do it. Even if you feel like you're overdressed and you look around, doesn't matter. Now, over the past number of years, probably the past 5 to 7 years, it's gotten really dicey in this arena. I've had employers interview candidates where the employer was wearing thongs and shorts and a t-shirt. I don't care what kind of environment they tell you they're in. I recommend always going to an interview dressing like you were going to the bank to borrow $1 million. And then practice your body language. I had a candidate not too long ago stretch out in his chair, crossed his legs, put his hands up behind his head, was just way, way, way too casual. And the employer got so lost in that they never heard what the candidate had to say. Got to sit up in the chair, lean forward a little bit, feet planted on the ground, be animated enough to be able to make an expression of what you're doing with your hands, not too much, not too little. Again, it takes practice. Visual images of candidates are absolutely remembered. I can't tell you the number of candidates over the years that dressed poorly, didn't dress right. Had a candidate not too long ago, God bless him. I empathize with him, but he had gained 50 pounds because he had been job searching and because of COVID, and he wore a suit that was just way too tight. The employer got so wrapped up in the fact that he was wearing a suit that was too tight and his shirt that was bulging, that he got lost in it and never did hear what the candidate had to say. Sad, but we're visual people most of the time. Number 8, not researching the company or the position that they're interviewing for. Now, with the internet, this is a whole lot better than it used to be. I can remember where we had a whole room full of a library full of year-end reports on and brochures on companies. It's real easy to do research on a company, but by goodness, you really got to go into an interview knowing as much about the company and the person that you are talking to as you possibly can. Don't hesitate to take notes. Take those notes in with you. Nobody ever complained to anybody about reading from notes. You can pull them out. You've got to know what the company does, how the company does it. You've got to research the employer that you're interviewing with. Many times, lots of times, 60% of the time, employers have a tendency, and the higher up they go, the bigger ego they've got. The more you know about them, LinkedIn, of course, is great for that. But the more you know about them, the better off you are. I had a candidate get hired one time because he found out that the CEO of the company, his avocation was French cooking. Guy took him a French cookbook, and the candidate found out that the CEO had a penchant for French cooking from one of the people that he called in the company that knew somebody who knew somebody who knew this guy. He called and asked everything there was to know about the CEO, and he found out the guy loved French cooking. Another candidate one time that where the employer bragged about his collection of fly fishing books. So the guy found him a book on fly fishing. So the more you know about the people you're working for, not just the job and the company, but the person you're interviewing with, the better off you are. Number 9, inability to articulate what they would like in a new job. Now, I'm not talking about what you want. I'm talking about personal professional goals that you must have about yourself. When people say, what are you looking for in a job? You're looking for personal growth, personal satisfaction, the opportunity to advance mentally, to grow personally, to grow maybe intellectually. You've got to have a list of those. And there's nothing wrong with having a list of them. If people go in, and I've asked candidates, what are you looking for in a job? They'll say a paycheck. That's not going to get you very far. People are looking for the intrinsic growth that you are able to articulate about your abilities and how those abilities are going to help you grow internally. And the more that you can communicate the idea of growing intellectually, spiritually, psychologically, and internally, the better off you are. And you can just have a 2-sentence lip load about it. It's not that complicated, but you better have one, because if the only thing you can come up with is, well, I don't have a job and I'm looking for one, that's not going to really be very intellectually competent. And then number 10. Thank you, Jeff, by the way. Oh, bad mouthing their present or past employer. If you hear anything today, you better hear this. Whatever you say about your present employer or your past employer, you're going to say about the people that you're interviewing with. And if you communicate the idea that the last guy I worked for was a slug, the last woman that I worked for was a witch, the last company I worked for were a bunch of jerks, yada, 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 like that, you are going to be in bad shape. I don't care if you hated the people that you worked with. And it was an awful environment and it was toxic. You can never share that. Doesn't even matter if it's true. I know lots of companies in this city that do have toxic environments. When I refer candidates to those organizations, I say, now look, some of the people in this organization consider it to be a very rough environment and rather toxic, but some of those people work there and have been there for a long period of time. It fits some people, but you can't go into an interview bad-mouthing an employer under any circumstances, no matter how bad the situation was. You've always got to say, you don't have to say I loved every job, but you can say, I appreciated every situation that I was in, and I sure learned a lot. I left for very good reasons, and you better be able to articulate positive reasons. I had a candidate not too long ago, I asked him why he was looking to leave where he was. He said, well, it was just time to go. I said, what do you mean it was time to go? Well, we didn't get along. It was just time to go. You do that with a prospective employer, that's the end of the deal right there. It is just, so you can't badmouth anybody. No matter how bad the situation was, you can never badmouth anybody. Other minor sins, discussing personal problems in an interview. I'm going through a divorce. My kid is on drugs. I've got a messy life. People don't want to hire people with drama. They can't stand it. They got enough drama in the people that already work in their organization. So if you've got drama in your life, and we all have to a certain extent, if you've raised kids, God knows you have, you just don't want to share it that way. Being late for an interview, Dallas is spread out. We don't build up, we build out. It's going to take a whole lot longer for you to get where you need to be, especially with the traffic. So go the night before and test how long is it going to take for me to get where I need to be, and make sure, even if you're 45 minutes early and have to sit in the parking lot, being late is just a really bad way to start an interview, and it hardly ever gets off to a good start after that. Not apologizing for being late. I'm blown away when somebody's late for an interview, doesn't even say, I'm sorry I'm late. Come on. Not closing the interview properly. In fact, we can get into that in another discussion. There are 4 basic questions that a candidate has to ask at the end of every interview. Have I made it clear of what my experience and background is? Do you have any questions about my experience or background? How do you evaluate my ability to do the job that you want done? How do I stack up with the other candidates that you are interviewing? And what do I need to do to get the job? I emphasize this in my job search solution program. Those are the 4 questions you absolutely have to ask in every interview. If you ask things like, where do we go from here? What's the next step? It ain't going to work. It's lousy. You got to ask, what do I need to do to get the job? And then I just mentioned that about competitive candidates. How do I stack up? I will say about this, most people would not be surprised, but 35 to 40% of what you might communicate, you think you might be communicating in an interview, a prospective employer doesn't hear it. They're thinking about the next question that they're going to ask you. By asking the simple question of, have I made it clear about my experience and my background? Do you have any questions about my experience or my background? 9 out of 10 times, you're going to get some questions about a job you had in the past that the employer doesn't understand. Lots of hiring authorities, because they're hiring authorities, won't say, I don't understand. Whereas if you give them a chance to say, I don't understand, then you've opened yourself up to explaining what you've done in the past that they may not understand. And I got to tell you, there's 35, 40% of the time when I debrief with a prospective employer, inevitably, there is a lot of information that they just don't understand. And they don't have the guts to say, I don't understand. And after the candidate's gone, an hour or 2 later, the employer starts thinking, well, I never really understood what he did here or what she did there. I had it happen this morning. I talked to an employer. He said, that job she had about 5 years ago, I never did really understand what she was doing and how she did it. And, and I wanted to say, well, did you think to ask? But he didn't, and she didn't explain it very well. So it's real important that you practice that kind of thing and ask, are there any questions you might have about my background that I might clarify? Those are the top 10 mistakes. There are lots of others, hordes of them, but those are the top 10.
Thank you. I mean, Tony, great information. We skipped over this slide at the very beginning. You mind telling us a little bit about Babich and Associates and how long you've been around?
Yeah, we've been around since 1952. I actually didn't found the company.
Oh.
A lady by the name of Mildred Babich did in 1952, which was something for women to do. Then I went to work for her in 1973, and I bought the company from her in 1989. And we as Jeff says, we do place people. We do everything but healthcare. We mostly focus on the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We do accounting, finance, banking, administration, sales, engineering, IT, just about everything you can imagine. We pride ourselves in the fact that we meet most of our candidates, 99% of them face-to-face. Sometimes it's over Zoom. We establish a relationship with our candidates over a number of years. I placed a kid the other day that was the grandson of a guy that I placed 25 years ago. And so we try to get what's wrong with this picture, right? But we try to build a personal relationship with people over a long period of time. And we've been very blessed. We happen to be when I moved to Dallas, there were 600,000 people in the whole Dallas-Fort Worth area. So it was just plain blind luck to move to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We were called employment agencies then. I guess we still are, but it's been a gratifying career and a wonderful place to be. We've been very blessed.
Great. So will you go over those 4 questions again at the very
Yes.
end that you like to ask? I think that's very important. I think people need to
Yeah.
hear that again.
Yeah, real important. And if you go to my job search solution program, I have a whole session on these. The 4 basic questions, and you need to ask these of everybody you interview with. I don't care if you go into a company and you're interviewing with a 22-year-old kid that just graduated from college with a degree in HR. And, they ask you things like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, dumb stuff. I'll admit that. At the end of every interview, you've got to ask, have I made my experience and background very clear? Do you have any questions about, do you have any questions about any of the experience that I've had or any of the experience that I've had or any of the jobs that I've had? That's the first one. The second one is, have I made it clear? And I want to ask you, have I made it clear about my ability to do the job? Do you have any concerns about my ability to do the job that you want done? The first question is clarification of my background. The second question is clarification about my ability to do the job. I had a fellow this morning that was on a Zoom call with an employer, and he asked him that question, and the guy said, I handle a lot of IT salespeople. And the employer said, I need somebody that has sold software to systems integrators, and I just don't think you have enough experience in doing that. And the candidate said, wait a minute, I really do. And then he went over where he had that kind of experience. Had he not asked that question, that employer would have walked away with the idea that the guy didn't have the background he needed. And then the third question is, how do I stack up with the other candidates that you've interviewed? Most employers don't get that question. You're going to find out then how you do stack up. If the employer says, well, we're interviewing a whole lot of people and we really don't have an idea, or I don't really know, or we've got 10 more interviews, it probably tells you that you're probably not doing all that well. If the employer says you're very qualified based on the people that we have interviewed, you stack up really well. And you can then ask a sub question to that is, what in my background do you like the best that fits this? Why do you say that? And then the last question, and it's gotta be, what do I need to do to get the job? Now I teach this, right? Okay, I teach it. I sent 5 candidates to an employer about 2 weeks ago. The employer is an old candidate of mine. I placed him in this job about 3 or 4 years ago. He interviews these candidates. He said, Tony, 4 of your candidates failed. I said, what do you mean, Chet? What do you mean 4 candidates failed? He said, you teach everybody to ask the same questions. Only one of those 5 people asked, what do I need to do to get the job? And I knew that you taught them to do that because you taught me to do that. Normally, when I ask candidates, why did you not ask that? They say something like, well, the timing wasn't right. Well, it just didn't seem appropriate. Well, I just wasn't really sure of it. And here's what the truth is. The truth is they didn't summon up the courage. And I admit this takes courage and it's not easy to do, but they didn't summon up the courage to find out, am I a candidate or am I not? Remember, no is the second best answer I can get, okay? And you gotta ask, what do I need to do to get the job? If somebody says, and they give you steps of what you need to do to get it, then you know you're in the right place and you're doing the right things. If they come up with, well, we've got a number of other candidates to interview and I don't really know, I'm not sure. That tells you right there that you're probably not in the top 1, 2, or 3. That doesn't mean you're going to hit the ball every time you go to the plate. It just means that you know where you stand. And by asking questions other than that, those 4 questions tell you where you stand and you're going to know. And that's what's most important, for you to be able to walk out of that interview and get a real good idea of exactly where you stand and how you stand in the situation.
Great. All right. Somebody asked us to talk, if you talk a little bit more about mistake number 6, poor communication skills.
Oh, yes. This is a tough one because, first of all, looking for a job, next to death of a spouse, death of a child, death of a parent, coupled with divorce, the fourth most emotional thing we do is look for a job. Nobody likes looking for a job. And it's intimidating and it's emotionally stressful. It's just a really hard thing to do. And one of the ways that emotional strain stresses or shows up is in poor communication skills. Because we're not used to interviewing, because we're not used to getting dressed up and really going, and because we feel intimidated by the whole experience, we just don't communicate really well. Here is what I've done in the past. Here is why I am a good employee. Here is why you should hire me. And in very specific things about you and your background, and be able to articulate it in every job you've had. In my job search solution program, I have a whole script of how you need to write it out, and you need to just darn near memorize the thing. You've got to articulate, you've got to look people in the eye, you've got to lean forward in the chair and be animated without being too animated. Unfortunately, a lot of people, especially in some of the technical arenas, some of the IT arenas, and that kind of thing, they don't look people in the eye. They're not necessarily people, but that's okay. In the interviewing process, you have to train yourself to do that. And that means you just have to practice it and practice it and practice it. People don't practice interviewing anywhere near the level that they should. And it's so important because that image is, look, 40% of a hiring decision is, do we like you? Okay. And one of the ways you communicate being liked is the way you communicate, your posture, and your communication skills.
Right. Do we have any other questions? Anybody else have a question online? You're welcome to unmute your mic and ask, or enter it in the chat box. I know, I'm sorry for the Facebook feed dropped off after about 20 minutes. So I will upload this video to Facebook later this afternoon, along with uploading to the YouTube channel.
Was that my fault too?
No, it was not your fault.
Could I comment briefly? Could I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Thanks. Tony.
Yes.
This was new to me. In my past interviews, I would ask maybe, what are the next steps? But I never came right out and said, what do I have to do to get the job? And I'm wondering, is that a bit, it feels kind of a little too forward to me.
Yeah.
Like you're expecting you've almost got it, even if you don't.
A very good question, David.
And what's
Thank
the
you.
problem with just asking what the next steps are?
Okay. I wrote a blog about this on LinkedIn, and I stressed the question of, what do I need to do to get the job? And some lady wrote, God bless her, she said, that seems awfully forward, and it's really not like me to be that forward. And I understand. If you say it in a nice way, with a smile on your face, in a sincere fashion, then it's very, very, very palatable to a prospective employer. If you say it in a, what I need to get your damn job, then yeah, you know, that's probably going to be a little offensive. But if you put a smile on your face and you say, what do I need to do to get the job? 9 out of 10 times, the hiring authority will chuckle. I've had literally situations where the candidate has heard from the employer when they ask that, nothing else, you've got it. Now that was back when it was a little easier to get a job, but it's not that, it's only forceful to you. We're not necessarily sales, most of us sales oriented, but if you practice asking that question, you're going to find out where you stand, and people appreciate it. What's the next step? Where do we go from here? In my opinion, is just too soft. It's way too soft. You got to realize that this employer is comparing you to 15 or 16 other people that they've interviewed. And you've got to differentiate yourself. And this is one way of doing it. And it's forceful, but it can be stated in a really nice, gentle way, and then it doesn't come across as harsh.
Let's see here.
While you're looking at me,
Christy?
yes.
Oh, go
How would you say, is this the statement you make when you say not asking for the job?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You got to ask for it.
Yeah,
You know,
look.
even if you don't, even you may not want it. You know, look, we had a candidate about a year ago that was overqualified for the job, but look, I'll talk to anybody that'll listen. He was an accountant controller type. He goes into the interview. They told us they wanted to pay $130,000. This doesn't happen every day. They offered him the job at $250,000 because he interviewed so well and he asked the right questions, and they found other things he could do. Now, that doesn't happen every day. Ironically enough, he turned it down for a different job, which wasn't ours. But you just, by practicing that kind of thing and being fairly forceful and professional about it, you just never know what can happen in an interview.
Christine asked, do you have some tips for Zoom interviews?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we could spend a whole session on that, but I'll give you some real brief ones. First of all, stand up. Get a stand-up desk. When you stand up, you are much more authoritative when you do a presentation. I'm not standing up now because I have to mess with this computer, but stand up. Make sure you have light pastels in the background. I have had candidates in the past year that have lost jobs over Zoom because one guy had comic books on his bookshelf. The employer thought anybody that has comic books on their bookshelf, something's wrong with them. I had a lady that interviewed over Zoom in her bedroom, and the employer thought it was just too intimate, and he really didn't like the feeling that it communicated. I had another candidate. She wore dangling earrings with diamonds in them that reflected poor light. I've got a whole session in the job search solution on how to prepare for a Zoom interview. Your lighting has to be right. You have to have pastels in your background. It can't be too busy. I know in my picture right now, I've got my coat hanging up. Normally when I do these things, I put my coat on or I move it so it's not distracting. People, for some reason with Zoom or Skype or anything, pay attention a lot to the background. This is amazing. You think about it, when you see people interview on television, you have a tendency to want to look. I don't know what the psychological, Dan Ariely might be able to tell us sometime what the psychological connotation for that is. But people have a tendency to spend a lot of time thinking about what's in a person's background with a Zoom call. So make sure your background is as plain as you can get. Make sure there's light in front of you that is shining on your face so that it doesn't look dark. Illuminated light from the top isn't as good. And then don't wear bold colors, and watch out for dangling and overstated earrings or anything like that.
Great, Tony. All right, somebody asked, can you talk a little bit more about the job search solution? Can you tell us about the program and,
Yes.
the cost and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. It's on Udemy, and I think it's $49. I kind of have a guy that runs that. It's a 60-hour course of everything I ever learned about finding a job. Everything from the emotional aspect of looking for a job, relatives and how they can help you, how they can hinder you, how to specifically go about managing. Here's the core of it. If you manage the process, the result is going to take care of itself. Okay? And I teach people how to manage the process, what you can control. And I discuss everything you ever imagined in the job search, from the very beginning to the very end. And we use it with our candidates here. When our candidates go on interviews, we provide it for them. But it's 60 hours, and it's a money back guarantee because you got nothing to lose. But it's one of the few things that's written out there by somebody. It's actually in the trenches, on the phone every day, talking to people about what goes on. And some of the stuff out there on the internet about looking for a job is the most unfortunate, god awful stuff that I've ever seen. And it's kind of sad, but everybody's entitled to their opinion. But unfortunately, looking for a job is kind of like raising kids. Anybody that raised kids thinks they know how to raise kids. Well, I guess maybe they do know how to raise their own, but it's also, if you've been married, you think you're an authority on marriage sometimes. And sometimes people got a job before, so they think they know how to help others get a job. And it's just not so. So it's a 60-hour program, and you can buy individual sessions for it, on everything from how to interview to how to accept a job offer to what to do when you show up your first day at work. I mean, it covers just about everything you can imagine.
Great. Are you open to people sending you LinkedIn connection requests?
Absolutely. Look, the next to being paid, the highest compliment we can get is to be referred to. And we accept all kinds of things. We can't help everybody. We do our best, but absolutely. I've got probably 20, maybe 25,000 people on LinkedIn. I mean, some of these people I don't really know, but I link in with everybody just because, look, they never know when they're going to need me, and I never know when I might need them.
Right. And if you do send Tony a note, be sure to send him a note. Let him know that, send him a personal note. Let him know that you saw him here, that, you appreciate his top 10 list. And that way he'll at least be able to, if he looks back, he'll be able to see when we connected and what you talked about the very first time. So Tony, well, thank you. I think great information today. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the technology worked.
Well, it's sort of funny. Today happens to be our 35th interview session we've done since COVID, and it's the 165th workshop we put on since COVID started. So,
well, God bless you.
We were.
Well, I want you to know how much people like me appreciate the kind of thing that you're doing, Jeff, because people need, especially in this COVID world, with so much emotional tension going on, they need organizations like yours to help them out. And we're running a business, and so we end up we have to work with the best candidate we can find for our clients, and we only place maybe 2, maybe 3% of the people that we interview, because it has to be that way. We wish we could help them all, and it's nice when organizations like yours can reach out and help people without worrying about whether they're going to get a job or not get a job. You're helping them, and I want you to know when you do that for the community, it's really appreciated.
Tony, thank you very much for those nice words. All right, well, upcoming, we've got a couple more programs coming up this week. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we'll be doing our effective resume session. Carol's going to be joined with a guest speaker tomorrow, and she also is going to be giving away a free coaching session. So join us tomorrow. I guess we can take 100 people on Zoom, and one of those people will be the lucky winner of a free coaching session. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, Friday at 9:30 in the morning. As we do every year, at the very end of the year, I have Susan Holly, who's a senior tax advisor with H&R Block, is going to come talk about taxes, things you need to know, think about, year-end things to maybe, put together while you've got a couple of weeks off, or, while you're, things to be pulling together so you're ready to go for your taxes, to get the taxes done every year. And the reason we wait to the very last Friday of the year that we meet is because government tends to rewrite the rules the last week of the year for the prior year. So we just never know. So this will be information up to date. So Susan Holly will be joining us this Friday. We are not going to have any sessions for the week of Christmas and none the session of week of New Year's, but we will be back the first week of January, starting on that Tuesday with a LinkedIn presentation. And we're going to start the 13-part interview workshop over again with Walt and Mark. They'll be starting on January 6th. So check the Career FW calendar and you'll be able to get that information. And there will be a new login for those 13 sessions starting for January, February, and March.
So I can mention the first session. If you'd
Okay.
like.
Yes.
Yeah, so the first 5 sessions are all about preparing to interview in some way, form, or fashion. And so the very first one is about preparing in general. So how do you just get ready to interview, and also how recruiting works. Seems like a lot of people, especially early in their search, get confused by the different kinds of recruiters there are. So we'll review that for you, and that'll help you sort it out when you get that strange call where they want to know your salary requirements on the second question they ask you. So
great, Mark. Thank you very much. We look forward to starting that over again January 6th. This session has been recorded. I will upload it to the Career FW Facebook page and to the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. You'll be able to watch both of them. They'll probably be up there by 4 o'clock at the latest. You can watch it over and over again, go back, and if you didn't write down Tony's top 4 questions you got to ask, go and watch it again, and you can be able to, get that information there. Follow us on Facebook. Every time we go live, you'll get a little alert on your phone that we're currently live, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way, every time we post a new video up there, you'll find out about it. As I said, this is our 165th workshop we put on. Probably 140 of them are all recorded and are all up on the Career USA YouTube channel. Not every speaker gives permission for us to record everything. So for those who have, their information is up there. If you go to the YouTube channel, it looks like this, Career USA YouTube channel. Don't click on the video, but click it down where you see that red arrow where it says View Full Playlist. This way you'll be able to see a list. Up will pop a list of all the shows and the episodes we've done for that particular subject. And that way you can scroll down and find the subject you'd like to hear about. So please remember, Career FW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Tony did this free of charge. He's giving back to help you land your next great opportunity. What I've done over the last 12 years, what Mark and Walt are doing, we're all volunteering to help you get your next great opportunity. Career FW survives on donations. Please consider when you land your next opportunity to make a donation, help Career FW survive. If the new company happens to offer matching donations, please allow your donation to double in value. So thank you very much for joining us today. If we don't see you until after the new year, have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And hopefully maybe we'll see you tomorrow for resumes or Friday for the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. So everybody have a great time. Tony, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you all
Thank-
very much. God bless.
Thanks, Tony and Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.